That's
Well,
weird.
I want to make sure
Okay.
it records to the cloud and not to my local computer.
Okay.
All right.
Take it away. Me. Awesome. So great. Thanks everybody for joining us for this webinar. I'm really excited to be teaching, and thank you so much to Vital Communities for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to teach, because this is my favorite class to teach. My name's Bevin. I am a certified cycling instructor by the League of American Bicyclists. Been a bicycle advocate and teaching for about 15 years. And I've been using a bike for transportation my whole life. I don't think I was a winter cyclist when I was a kid. That's been for like most of my adult life, and primarily in Montana and Colorado. So New England is slightly different. Montana's pretty rough. Colorado was, winters are mild compared to New England. So, but yeah, so I do have lots of experience. I try to teach from my experience. Oops, now my cursor's not working. Hang on, guys. So that's weird. There we go. Okay. So great. My first message to you is, I think I like winter cycling because it's about sort of embracing winter. And I think it's important to sort of demystify winter and winter cycling, and that it's not just for the hardcore. I'm actually kind of wimpy about the cold if I'm not properly dressed. So I guess I'm a little bit tough because I grew up in Minnesota. But yeah, I kind of like to say, really, I think anyone can be a winter cyclist. You're probably tougher than you think. My temperature record, I used to think, was -30, which was in Montana. So that's with this warm Rocky Mountain sun. And I started to doubt my memory on that. So I looked it up the year that was, and I found that the record was -25. So maybe it was 25, but I'll remember the day I biked by the bank and I looked up and the bank temperature said -30. That's probably equivalent to about -10 in New England, because it's drier and sunnier there. So I'll have to figure out. I don't have a record yet for Vermont, so I gotta keep working to that. So I like to say, you're tougher than you think. You can be comfortable and even warm. I mean, clothing is so key. They say, there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing. I also like to always give people ideas for clothing that don't cost a lot of money. I don't think you necessarily have to have fancy technical gear either. Every ride with winter cycling is a shakedown ride. And by that I mean you learn something every time. Sometimes it sucks. And you learn something, and the next time you don't make that same mistake. I think the thing I really like about winter cycling is actually, I'm not a very optimistic person, I don't think, and winter cycling gives me a really positive attitude. I guess it's super empowering when I do it. I like the problem solving part of it. Like when you have something gets cold and you go home and you're like, okay, I'm going to problem solve this. So it's very good for my attitude. And I love this picture. This is a friend of mine in Minnesota. And she says, as usual, I'm too warm. I think it was -15 or 20 that day. And she shows some of the really excellent accessories. She's got one of those, I think what they call that type of Eskimo hat with that fur. I've been thinking about doing something like that to just kind of create this barrier with a hood. And she's got ski goggles on and a nice kind of probably face mask and balaclava. I love how she says, as usual, I'm too warm. You guys can hear me okay?
Yep. Hear you great.
All right. So here's a little light snowing day in Colorado. I've got my daughter on the back of my bike. You can see some of my accessories I've used here as well. I really they make those cycling caps that just have a little bit of a visor. Those are really nice if you wear glasses. I'm just going to point things out to you as we go. Keeps the snow off my glasses, and I'm wearing a ski helmet there, and so's my daughter. I'll talk about those in a minute. But why commute by bicycle? I talk about this a lot in some of my other presentations a little bit more, but it's so good for you. Getting that time outside and in the light, you'll probably get sick less. You'll save money, and particular to winter cycling, I like it because it helps me build my skills for other cycling, because just the technical aspects of biking in snow, and I find it fun. It is really good for you. it fights disease. There's a great opportunity for weight loss by using a bike for transportation. There's exercise in small increments, so you can add up these 5-minute trips that you're doing or 10-minute trips. And I always like to point out the health benefits outweigh the risks 20-1 of bike commuting. Got that from Trek Bicycles. I'm going to go through that kind of quickly because I have that in my other presentation. The other thing I always just like to talk about is the foundation of my training as a safe cycling instructor is this whole idea called vehicular cycling. And I bring it up mostly to just reinforce the idea that you belong on the road and you have a right to be on the road. And that's the main kind of premise of vehicular cycling that I want to leave you with. It's based on the idea that you'll actually fare best when you act and when cyclists are treated like drivers of vehicles. So the idea is it's the same road, same rights, same rules, and same responsibilities, which does mean you need to obey traffic laws. And again, there's more detail on this concept and lane positioning in my other presentation, but real quickly, I just wanted to talk about taking up the lane is an expression we use. We also call it lane control or lane positioning. Number one rule for being on the roads is please ride on the right with the flow of traffic. Some people like to bike facing traffic, like what is recommended for pedestrians. It's actually still safer for bicyclists to ride with the flow of traffic. So we always recommend that. This lane positioning in this picture, I think in the winter is going to be even more common for you because the bike lane might not be plowed or it's going to be full of snow. It's going to be full of parked cars. So in the winter, in some ways, you almost have to take up the lane even more, which means you're out in the lane, you're queued up with the cars. And again, I talk about this a little bit more in my other presentation, but I just wanted to bring that up in terms of winter. So what's the winter cycling mindset? We've talked about the benefits. So honestly, one of the things I discovered is I'd almost rather jump on a bike when it's close to zero than start a car. There's something about getting in a frozen, frigid car that I hate. And so this was pictures from a day where I almost got in the car. And then I was like, it was pretty cold. It was probably below 10. And I was like, why am I getting in the car? I hate that. And so I jumped on my bike. But I've got a beautiful, warm Colorado sun over me, which boy, is really nice. So there's lots of benefits to it. Save money. It's probably better to not start your car when it's really, really cold. The other thing about the mindset I always like to bring up is you make your own rules, right? So you can be a winter cyclist and maybe you'll never bike when there's snow on the roads. There's still a lot of days left in the winter where you could bike and not bike in the snow. I had a bike commute from Cabot to Hardwick up here in Vermont, and I looked back and saw that I was still doing that up to December 15th. So I got a good chunk of early winter where I was able to bike on a road, on a dirt road that wasn't too muddy and snowy. And so I always like to say, make your own rules. Maybe that might be one of your rules. You might have a temperature rule, like, if it's under 10, I just can't bike. That's too cold for me. So yeah, and along with that is your safety first, right? So consider your comfort, consider your skills. If you're like, boy, I just don't know how to ride on snow yet, don't do it. In line with that is set some goals. So maybe you're going to say, I'm going to try this winter to bike until it gets to be about 20 degrees. Maybe next winter you can push that down. With my kids, they used to bike to school. They could bike in Colorado down to 10 degrees. Under that, I was like, I'm probably being a mean mom to have my kid bike when it's colder than that. So we'll talk about kids in a little bit too. So yeah, set some good goals for yourself. That way you'll be like, I want to bike to work twice a month this winter or something like that. And then prepare. So the night before, you're like, what are the clothes I need to have ready? What do I need to do to my bike? And then practice. Like before you ever start biking in the snow, trying to get somewhere, find a safe place that's got snow in the road where you can just bike up and down. So much of it is getting used to the sensation of riding on snow. When I do it the first winter, I'm terrified. I'm always like, oh my God, I'm sliding. And then like the more I do it, it gets more of a known feeling, and just giving yourself that chance to practice riding in snow before you launch out into a commute. take those baby steps. That's in line with setting your own rules, coming up with some goals. You'll build up your tolerance as you go, and you might actually enjoy it. So equipment. People say they can ride, you can ride any bicycle. Lots of people ride some skinny tires. I can't do it. Just mentally, I can't ride it. I guess they say that the skinny tire cuts down through the snow and they think it works better. To me, it's just a mental thing. I can't be on a skinny tired bike. A mountain bike works great. Lots of people love the fat bikes. They give you just a real feeling of stability. An internally geared hub, I would think any e-bike is probably internally geared, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. That's just more of an issue for grit. And some people like to ride single speeds, but you guys are, with e-bikes, we'll talk about that a little bit. I still need to learn about e-bikes. I have not bike commute in the winter on an e-bike yet, so I need to learn more about that. So tires is a key thing, especially in the East. It's so much more icy here. I feel like studded tires are definitely a huge benefit. Once I got them, I didn't have them for the first few years winter biking. It really makes a difference. Again, and mentally, it makes you feel more confident and stable, and it really does help with the ice. In general, you want a wider tire with a good tread, like a mountain bike tire. The bigger the tire, the more you're going to float on the snow. With any tire, you probably want to lower the inflation. So you don't want to have a super hard, you don't want a ton of air in your tire. You want to lower that inflation a little bit. So let out a little air so you actually have better traction on soft snow. You can add air back for more of a packed snow. So depending on the snow quality, you can play around with that. In general, like I recommend, you want your tires pretty hard, like a grapefruit. But in the winter, you might want them a little softer. Other accessories for the bike are fenders are so key out here because it's so darn wet. That would be kind of one of my top 3 recommended winter cycling accessories. Flat pedals instead of clipping in. If you are someone that actually has little clip-in pedals, flat pedals nice for the winter because you're going to be able to wear a leather boot or your muck boots or any kind of winter boot. Well, you can just put your foot on a flat pedal. Most people say that disc brakes are better for wet or icing up. I'm pretty sure all the e-bikes come with disc brakes. So that's probably not an issue you need to worry about. Bicycle maintenance, somebody asked a question about it. It is a good idea to keep your bike clean and dry. And Anna reminded me of, you have a water bottle of water. When you get home at the end of the day, spray down your drivetrain. Really just those mechanical parts of your bike, maybe around your battery, and then bring your bike inside and let it dry. So ideally storing your bike inside in the winter is pretty important, unless you really can't. Keep your chain and your drivetrain clean and lubed. So you want to you can wipe down the brake pads. I guess you would probably more have discs. You can wipe down the rims. That's if you have the old type of caliper brakes. Use a really good thick, they have what they call wet lubes or lubes that are good for wet weather. So a good chain lube, you could take good care of your chain at least once a week, wipe it down with an old t-shirt and put some new lube on there. And then with the e-bikes, it is key to bring your battery indoors. Other equipment that is key. So visibility is even bigger deal in the winter. We have a lot of low light and short days. I would just keep a set of lights on your bike year round. So front and back light is great. One nice way, if you really are going to bike in the dark, is to have a light on your helmet and your handlebars. It's not necessary. It's just an added way for you to be able to see well. Definitely wear some bright colors during the winter. You have a yellow vest. You can get, basically yellow reflective vests at Home Depot. I think all kinds of places have just basic, yellow, orange safety vests. Just have some bright clothing. Obviously, people's visibility of you is going to be decreased when it's snowing and at dawn. So just got to really think about, how that people might be seeing you even less than maybe normal. So having some reflective material on your clothes and bikes. They do sell little kits of just the reflective patches with a sticky bath. And so like basically reflective stickers, you can put them. I had a friend who put them down the arm of her jacket so that when she signaled, her arms were reflective. You could put them on your snow pants. You can put little reflective dots all over your bike. So those are always just a great accessory. So the basics of dressing, because that's a big part of this presentation. The key is to dress for an active winter activity. So you might get pretty warm if you're working pretty hard. If you have any hills, you're gonna be getting hot and sweating. So you think about this as an active sport. So it's obviously very individualized. There's a lot of trial and error. You're gonna try stuff. Some things are gonna work, some things aren't. And you'll get to that place where you know how to wear just the right amount depending on the temperature. So again, back to the active winter sport, you want to avoid getting too sweaty. So I prefer to wear insulating layers that breathe. So I don't tend to wear much Gore-Tex at all because for me, I just get really hot. I prefer these more breathable jackets, and I'll show you in a second. You can do some in color. I can't remember if I have this, what part of my presentation I do this in, so I'm just going to do it now. If you're looking at coats, I hope you guys can see me. This is what I call like a soft shell. So it's got a little synthetic insulation in it. If you blow on it, it's called the blow test. If no air can go through at all, that's a completely windproof jacket. For me, if I wear something really windproof like Gore-Tex, I might get too hot and then I get really sweaty. So I prefer something that's warm, like a lightweight insulated, either down jacket or with a synthetic insulation. That actually keeps me warm and it also lets me breathe. So my body's ventilating. I'm not going to get too sweaty. Temperature variance. I have found in Vermont that I start out really cold and I get really, really hot. I think it's because of these steep hills. I feel like it's almost unavoidable in Vermont for me to not have to stop at some point and just switch jackets or take off a layer. So you're going to want to have a way to have those layers and a way to carry them. Maybe some backup thing in case you dress too light, you're kind of prepared. A simple windbreaker, like a simple shell that's actually less breathable. If you've underdressed, you put that shell over your t-shirt or over your sweatshirt, then you put your jacket back on. That simple wind shell is going to help you actually keep the vapor in. So in that case, it'll be keeping you warm. A lot of this is trial and error and finding the things that work for you. For me, I kind of have these outfits, certain outfits I wear at certain temperature ranges. So I can get up in the morning, it's 25 degrees, boom, I know I'm going to wear X, Y, and Z. And I'll show you, I've got some examples of that. I hope this doesn't make it sound like you need a million different coats and jackets, because I always don't want people to feel like they have to buy a lot of stuff, but having a slight, inventory of clothes does help. Learn your cold spots. Okay, so I hate it if my neck gets cold or my ankles. So if I've worn like too short of a sock and my ankles get cold or my neck gets cold, then I feel even more cold and I get to my destination and I'm annoyed. So I've had to learn my cold spots. And so I know that I need to wear at least a thin buff and I need to make sure my socks are tall enough. So I say I'm actually kind of a wimp about the cold. So you'll learn your cold spots and how to deal with them. And I've got other examples of that. I always like to say, if it's not a wet day, ideally in the winter even, you could just wear your regular street clothes. Maybe you're wearing the pants you're going to wear to work and you can just put some long johns under those pants. The one thing I'd probably change in the winter is I would try not to wear a cotton t-shirt. I would put on a synthetic or wool t-shirt. And then when I got to work, I would put on my work shirt because cotton just gets cold and wet. So I do recommend some kind of synthetic or wool base layer is recommended instead of cotton. Your insulating layer is your wool or your fleece or even a lightweight down jacket. Multiple layers. Neck zippers are great because if you get too hot, you can open up your neck zipper. Again, you want to wear enough to stay warm but not sweat. So it's a constant balance of not overdressing. They always say start a little cold and get warmer as you ride, which can sometimes be risky too because you might underdress. And again, I talked about shells. So for the outerwear, I prefer something that's wind and water resistant versus waterproof. There's a lot, they call them soft shells. I mean, a basic down jacket is a soft shell. And you can do the blow test. So can the air go through it all, which means that as you sweat and create this vapor, it's going to escape through the jacket and you're not going to build up moisture on your skin in your first layer. So like I only wear Gore-Tex like if it's really raining pretty hard. So some of these soft shells, they have these stretch wovens and wools. It gets a little technical. Again, I don't want you to feel like you have to have anything really special to wear. Jackets with hoods. I am a huge fan of hoods. Try this experiment when I'm out walking the dogs and I've underdressed. If I just put a hood up, my overall sense of warmth perceptively or actually increases by like 10 to 20 degrees. Like, so just putting a hood, and most hoods now are designed to fit over helmets. I love wearing a hood. Like I won't buy a jacket without a hood now because it's my, I'm a tiny bit cold. I put the hood up. It's got a good, neck on it. I can still see. Some people don't like hoods because they feel like they might be able to see as well, but for me, it's not an issue. Hoods is one of my big tricks for just adding that extra 10 degrees of warmth. Lower body, again, you could just wear your street clothes and have like a real thin pair of long johns. They have something called silk weight, which is just a really thin one. When it first starts to get cold, I just throw those long johns under my jeans. If I don't, I might be a little annoyed again because my ankles might get cold. So throw a thin pair of long johns under your pants. You get to work, you just pull those off. You're ready to go, So there's lots of different weights for long johns. Another one I really like is something called Power Stretch, which is a type of fleece that has a smooth face, but it's fleecy on the inside. And I have a pair of Power Stretch tights that I just wear as pants, and like down to about 40 degrees, it's like the perfect pant because it's wind resistant, it's slightly breathable, it's insulating, but it's like, it's just the perfect weight and the perfect amount of warmth for me, for my legs. I don't tend to wear like cycling fitting Lycra tights. I feel like that stuff's kind of cold. A lot of the clothes designed specifically for winter cycling, I actually don't really like. I hate to say it, like there's this Gore line and there's several lines out there, and I look at those and to me, they just look cold. So I tend to wear the stuff I would wear backcountry skiing or skiing. What I would wear if I went I ice climb too. So I've applied a lot of what I've learned mountaineering and ice climbing to how I dress for winter cycling. Accessories. So you can put a hat under your helmet. They've got great hats with ear flaps. Don't like getting my ears really cold. They have windproof headbands. Those are great. Again, I love the hood. They do have helmet covers that make your bike helmet a little warmer. I am a huge fan of the ski helmet. So once it hits about 50, I switch helmets and I just wear my ski helmet the rest of the season, starting around 50 degrees, because they're just so cozy. They're like really toasty and warm. And again, having a warm head gives you that overall perceptive feeling of warmth. It just makes you feel warmer. You don't have to struggle with trying to fit a hat under your bike helmet. And I'm just a huge fan of the ski helmets. If you want a great way to get a ski helmet is through a ski swap, because some ski helmets are a couple $100. I got a really nice POC ski helmet for $20 at a ski swap. So if you're in the market for ski helmet, you need a good price, I recommend hitting some of those ski swaps that people have. I'm just hoping you guys have one of those down around where you live. And hope maybe if you guys have Front Porch Forum, that's another great place to just say, hey, I'm looking for a used ski helmet. Neck warmers and buffs, balaclavas, even those real thin buffs are nice just to give you a little bit of layer on the neck, but that's not too hot. I actually have like 3 different face masks that I've used depending on the weather. But face masks are pretty good for giving like a good full coverage. A lot of people love ski goggles. I can't wear them over my glasses, so that's always been tricky for me. I did finally buy some anti-fog treatment for my glasses I want to experiment with, because that is one of my biggest problem solves I've still had to figure out for winter cycling is if I'm breathing a ton, my glasses will ice up and then you can't see. And that can be pretty intense. So I finally found a little bottle of anti-fog treatment. And so I'm excited to try that out and see if it works. So gloves, again, are very personable depending on how cold your hands get. I love those lobster gloves, which are the ones where they made them for Nordic skiing. I can't even do it, where your two of your fingers go together so you can still brake with these two fingers. So those are great. The bar mitts that people attach, you can get real basic cheap bar mitts that they make for snow blowers. They may even have them like at Home Depot. You put those on and then you don't have to wear a super thick glove that impacts your ability to brake and shift. And using chemical hand warmers is so great. Those little, I forget what they're called, the company. Put those in your boots and in your mitts or on your palm or on the top of your hand. And a friend taught me a great trick. If you put them in a Ziploc, at the end of the day, you can reuse those hand warmers, those chemical little packets multiple times. On my feet, so I can wear my bike shoes. I forget what, down to like maybe 30 degrees with little toe covers, but leather boots, hiking boots, those are going to keep your feet warm down to pretty cold temps. When it starts to get really cold, you probably need a well-insulated snow boot. You can double up your socks. And I love the plastic bag trick. So this again is the opposite of being breathable. Let's say you bike to work and your feet froze. Find a couple plastic bags, you put those over your socks, and then you put your bike shoes on. You're creating an actual vapor barrier, which is keeping the vapor and the heat in, and your feet might be warmer on the way home. Oh, here's an example of the lobster gloves. The toe covers are great if you do wear bike shoes. You could probably even put them over any shoe. This is an example just of a lightweight down jacket. That is like my preferred winter cycling jacket instead of like, let's say a Gore-Tex shell. There's an example of bar mitts here and a ski helmet. And I also like, for things on the cheaper side for on your legs. I mean, snow pants are great. I have to say on my legs, I didn't say this before, that might be the one place I would actually wear like a rain pant if it's really wet. Or a Gore-Tex type waterproof material on my legs. But I also I haven't tried these, but people have suggested just like an Army Navy or a wool pant could be great to wear. Just throw those wool pants. You can put them over your street pants. Because wool is a naturally wind and water resistant fiber. So that's the great thing about wool. And this is another example of my favorite accessories is I have the hood. The jacket with the hood is key for me. So real quick, this is my clothing systems by temperature. And this is kind of how I have my mental list of the clothing. So I just go through this with you. I hope it doesn't make people feel like they have to have a ton of things, but just gives you an example of, so the night before, if I know it's going to be 50 degrees in the morning, I can pull these clothes out. So from 60 to 50 degrees, I might have just a real lightweight soft shell that's, wind and water resistant, but not windproof, or a wind shirt, a wool t-shirt, just in case I do get sweaty, maybe a thin hat under my helmet and some basic fleece gloves. As it starts to get a little colder under my soft shell jacket, I'm probably going to have like some fleece. This is when I crack out my ski helmet and my lobster gloves, and I probably have to add something on my feet so my toes don't get cold. Starts to get colder, 25 to 15 degrees. I might up to more like an insulated soft shell. So like your basic down jacket. I might have to put a fleece sweater under there. I'm going to have my wool shirt on. Some type of fleece pant under my pants. I'm going to probably add a balaclava or a buff under my bike helmet. I'm probably going to need a thicker glove than I needed, and I might be doubling up my socks. Oh, I don't talk about what it would be on my feet here. By 25 to 15, I could probably have to switch to snow boots. Leather boots often work well for me too. I'm just trying to remember for sure. When we get closer to 0, I'm wearing a pretty thick, pretty good sized down jacket with a hood. I've probably switched to some type of soft shell pant or even a ski pant. I'm probably going to have a face mask. I got one cool face mask that actually Velcroed at the side. So then if I got too hot, I could just open the whole thing. I might switch to actual mitts, but it's hard to wear mitts on a bike if that's hard for you for doing your brakes and handling. Oh, I have hiking or snow boots. I think by 10 to 0, you're going to definitely need like a good insulated snow boot. And all of this varies depending on new snow, windshield, sun, etc. I have something that I call the front stoop effect, where you go out on your front stoop and if it's sunny and you're like, oh, I think it's warm today. And you get misinformation about exactly how actually cold it is outside. So that's why I say, like, if you know at 25 degrees, and in New England, it's hard too, because the humidity really varies here for me in terms of my perception of the cold. So again, you play around with this and soon this all becomes very fast because you're like, oh, I know I like to wear X at X temperature. And anyways, you get your own systems. Biking in new snow, I always forget this. So you've had a big snowstorm and you go out and bike and you get really, really hot because biking in snow is a lot of work. So let's say it's 25 degrees, but you're biking through thick snow. You're probably going to want to dress a little bit lighter because you're going to be working really hard. And then also wind chill, of course, is a huge factor here that's going to make you feel perceptively a lot colder. Other winter cycling conditions to consider are, again, the low sun angles. So in the early morning and late at night, the sun angles are really low in like the fall, winter, and early spring. Why does that matter? So if you're going to go out into the lane to take a left-hand turn and the sun is in your eyes, that means the sun is in the eyes of the cars behind you. So on that day, you might be like, maybe it's not safe for me to take a left turn from the lane. You might want to come off the road and cross like a pedestrian. So just thinking about if the sun's in your eyes, that means it's in the eyes of the cars behind you. If the sun is a low angle, but not in your eyes, it could be in the eyes of the cars in front of you. So just being, keeping that awareness. There's wet leaves and wet metals that can be a little slippery. You get snow buildup on curbs, get black ice. I haven't encountered a lot of black ice biking, more in a car, but. And then the types of snow for me, you learn them, like the snow that's got a lot of dirt in it, they call snert, can tend to be a little more slippery. Wet snow is a little bit more slippery. You like that really dry snow. The dry light snow, of course, the drier the snow, the more like styrofoam, the less slippery it is. The one thing I will say about snow is if you're on a road and the plow has gone through and there's the dirt mixed in or whatever, always, if there's untracked snow, always pick that. Untracked snow is always the least slippery because nothing's been driven over it or no moisture's been added to it. So if I have a section that's untracked, it's fresh snow, I always seem to fare best in that. As for road maintenance, this is actually from Colorado. They use something in Colorado called Apex Meltdown, and people asked me what was in it. And they would put that on the roads before it snowed. I don't know if they do that in New England. Some cyclists didn't like it because they thought it made it more slippery. And there's gunk in it. Like someone asked earlier, like, what do you do? What's the impact of all that salt and gunk on your bike? Again, just keeping your bike clean, rinsing it off with a water bottle, spraying it down is a great idea for just getting that gunk off. Sorry about the noise. If you can't hear that. So bicycling on snow and ice, what are the basic principles? So just be extra cautious. You're going to go slower. The motor after a snowstorm or in a snowstorm, motorists are preoccupied. Their visibility is decreased. How should you pick your route? So in general, we think, okay, I want to stick to the minor roads, try to stay where there's less cars. However, sometimes the arterials or the more busy roads are plowed first. Bike lanes probably won't be plowed. I guess it just depends on the priorities of the town. So yeah, and if the bike lane has snow in it, it's no longer a bike lane. It's no longer the usable lane for you. The law states that you're supposed to use the rightmost lane. But if the rightmost lane is full of broken glass or parked cars or snow, then you need to come out in the lane. This is a great picture indicating that. So they plowed this little mountain pass, but as you see, he's trying to stay on the shoulder, but he really needs to merge out and take up the lane, because he doesn't have a shoulder coming up here because it wasn't plowed. And finally, go multimodal. Consider, is there a way for you to still bike in the winter where you can also take the bus part of the way? Don't have to totally rely on biking the entire route, and have a good bailout or backup plan. Let's say you bike to work and you're like, oh my God, that was terrifying and I was way too cold. Do you have a coworker that can give you a ride home, or can someone pick you up? So having that kind of bailout plan. Again, with handling, I talked earlier about practice, just a really great way to practice during the summer is in sand. So if you can find a place with kind of light sand is a very similar sensation to biking in snow. Staying relaxed and loose is key, because if you start to slide, you kind of got to let your bike go with it a little bit. Try not to do sudden moves on ice or sharp turns or slam on the bike. So let's say you see a patch of ice in front of you, just stay really chill, bike through it, and then try to brake or turn, because you can bike over ice. It's best if you just don't brake or turn. So yeah, so find that dry spot after the ice. If you do get in a rut, sometimes there's the ruts from the wheels. You want to just kind of stay in it and ride it out. And again, pick your snow. So if there's any untracked snow, the white stuff is always the least slippery. And then walk. Let's say you get to a section that's really snowy and you're like, I don't want to bike this part. You just walk in that section. Almost done, guys. Winter riding with kids. So my kids biked to work. We actually had a little bike train, but we were lucky. We had this very nice plowed bike rec trail that we could bike on. And they would bike, like I said, we had a temperature, we would bike down to 10 degrees. After 10, we would drive. For kids, you basically dress for sledding or skiing, whatever they would wear. And again, the ski helmets are awesome. I think all these guys are wearing either ski helmets or winter bike helmets. I Googled winter bike helmets one time and it showed me ski helmets. There's very few people that actually make something called a winter bike helmet. Maybe more since I've last looked. But I figure a ski helmet is designed for crashing on ice, skiing way faster than any bike. So I cannot imagine that a ski helmet's not appropriate for a winter biking, as a winter biking helmet. So for kids, dress for sledding or skiing. Exposure time's key. So our bike ride to school was under a half hour. I felt like that was a reasonable exposure time for a kid. Sunny days are best, of course. Kids will get cold hands, so figuring out the best gloves and even maybe some bar mitts for them. And, teach them the skills, have them try it out before you try to bike to school. Have them set their own goals, and then having bragging rights. I'll never forget, we biked to school one day and we walked in and I said to this little girl, it's like, oh, my Stella just biked to school. And the little girl was like, no way, you can't bike on that ice. And Stella's like, yeah, I did. Like, it's kind of fun bragging rights for a kid. We're done. And I just want to say, what's your goal? This is my goal. I've been hoping to do a winter bike race for many years. This is the one I want to do. So thought I'd, in closing, share a goal that I have. I hope you can set one for your winter cycling. And have fun out there. Please feel free to email me anytime with additional questions. And I am one of the questions in the chat was electronics and road salt issues. So I will definitely follow up with that as well. I think we should open it up to questions. I'm going to open up my chat thing so I can see you guys. And I'll open up the chat. Well, thanks, everybody.
Bevin, I'm here and can help moderate as well. But you can also just go through the chat, since I know that you can't see it while you're presenting.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it right now. Cool. No winter biking, never winter. Electronics, yep, got that. From southern Minnesota. I grew up in Minneapolis. West Fairleigh. Add this to my winter outings. Awesome. No winter bike, e-bike. I was hit by a truck on my e-bike last year. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to jump you down a little further, Bevin, if that's okay.
Yeah, tell me where to go.
So Jason has asked, they've found if he wears a fleece headband that covers my ears under my helmet, the helmet presses the headband against ears and muffles hearing. Any thoughts or comments on that experience?
Right, because some of those headbands are windproof. And yeah, that is the downside of any windproof item. So again, I would recommend a ski helmet, because the ski helmets their ear flaps have little perforated I think so you can hear through them. But yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to fit anything under a bike helmet. It's really annoying to try to get stuff under there. That's why I like to switch to a ski helmet myself, would be my main recommendation for that. Oh, I did have background chatter. I'm sorry, guys. Was it okay?
think
I can still make you out. Just a little, it sounded like it just would pop in and out.
Sorry about that, guys. Any other questions? You can raise your hand. Can we do raised hands, Anna?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you unless you're gonna use your slide again, if you want to unshare your screen.
Oh, yes,
folks
thank
are
you,
welcome
sorry.
To unmute themselves and turn your camera on if you want. You can also just unmute yourself and ask a question directly or keep it in the chat, another one in the chat, or just any other suggested options for keeping ears warm.
Yeah, the ski helmet is the key one for me. But like my thing is I get cold between my eyes. And so, oh, I was able to get a ski helmet that came with a shield because I was trying to actually jerry rig that myself. I took my old ski helmet and I went to a motorcycle supply place and bought the visors they make for motorcycle helmets. And I did these little Velcro tape tabs and like jerry rigged this, just like a shield, which keeps my face warm. That's another one of those kind of problem solving moments. And I can wear my glasses. So it's one of my other hacks. Trying to think if I forgot anything else like that. Yeah. Any other questions or things to share? Yeah,
But
John.
I wonder, do you have any thoughts on, I mean, I think that all of the clothing and the things like goggles and hoods and stuff like that does kind of worry me around visibility. You said that it's something you kind of get used to. But I'm wondering, to help as you build confidence in that area, does having things like mirrors work, or does that also fog up too much over things like that? I don't know if you used other sort of visibility supports.
Yeah, I
cycling.
feel like I used the mirror for a short time, a long time ago. You can get one for your handlebars. I think as long as it's not too close to where you breathe, if you don't breathe on it. So if you got the one on your helmet, that would probably help. I know I got to add that to my to-do list to experiment more with. I just tend to recommend really a lot of scanning. You know, I tend to talk about scanning in my other presentation. If you drop your left hand onto your left thigh, it allows you to twist a little bit more. And I mean, just like when I'm skiing, I try to always kind of have a good 360 degree. And I feel like with most of the helmets and goggles, you can still see pretty well. But yeah, as long as you don't breathe on the mirror, it shouldn't fog up, I don't think. But I will experiment with that. Any other questions about the clothing? I don't want people to feel like they have to buy a lot of things. You know, I think there's so many used gear shops. That's a great place to go and get all kinds of mitts and jackets. You guys have one of those down where you are. I know Burlington's got a used gear shop.
We have one here in Hartford too. It's pretty new and old. I
Awesome.
think Becky maybe has a question or a
Yeah,
comment.
Becky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Becky.
Cold hands. I have Raynaud's, which means
Oh.
like they turn into zombie white fingers.
Yep.
They get cold really easily and they stay cold a really long time.
Yep.
Does anybody have anything? I mean, I don't know. I've
Yeah.
looked at like considered electric gloves,
Yes.
heated gloves.
Have you tried the little chemical hand warmer, guys? Does that help at all with Renard's?
I would sure hate to go through a bunch of those just every time I want to go outdoors. So I'd rather have something kind of reusable.
Yeah, did you hear my trick? If you put them in a Ziploc, you
Uh-huh.
can reuse them for days on end. They just can't be exposed to air.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm worried. I think my daughter might have Renard's. And so I know before she used to be able to go outside with like nothing on. And I was like, oh, she's going to make a great ice climber. And then it's like, if you have Renard's, I know, I just don't even know. I have friends who winter bike who have it, but boy, because the minute your hands get cold, there's no turning back, right? So that would be the key for everybody though, right? Like once your hands are cold, it's so hard to get them warm again. So for you, I think a really good glove I've also found if gloves are too snug on my fingers, some of the new gloves are so insulated. If they're too snug, I don't get the blood flow. Or wearing mitts if you feel like you can still brake and shift, having a full mitt on and then doing the bar mitts for that extra. And I do believe too, the warmer your core is, usually your appendages stay warmer too. I don't know if that helps with Renards. But yeah, they must have those electric gloves now, don't they? I think I've seen those before.
I was gonna buy a pair for my mom a couple years
Mm.
ago.
Yeah.
So they like you charge them on your USB. But they were kind of pricey. So
They have
Yes.
ski boots and
now that's
ski boots.
recorded in perpetuity that I can't spend enough money on my mother.
Yeah, right? Oh, you're in trouble.
Nobody sent my mom this link.
Oh gosh, yeah, cold hands, cold feet. Yeah, that's a tough one. But again, yes.
I
Not
will
taking
say
the
that
full-
for
yeah.
keeping ears and neck warm, they do make these thin, stretchy balaclavas
Yeah.
that's been everything. And
Yeah,
I
like the-
don't have that problem anymore.
Oh, good. Yeah, those thin buffs, even though they're not that thick,
Mhm.
will add so much warmth to your head
Cover
and your
like
neck.
that and
Yeah, like I don't like getting a cold neck. Oh, I do like the coats that have the current coat I have has a hood, but when the hood's down even, it's got a really nice high neck that I can zip up. So my neck is nice and tucked in. Anybody else have any other tips? Getting good on time. Tips or questions, comments? I appreciate any feedback. And the recording will be shared, right, Anna?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple comments in the chat about what people
Are there?
use, but in general, it seems like we may be nearing the end of this presentation, which John will be happy to learn. I can stop the video earlier than now, and then I will send it to your mother. So yeah, thank you so much, Bevin.
You're welcome.
And folks have our contact information at Vital Communities if you want to reach out to either get to Bevin through us or have some kind of other question or interest. Looks like people are
Oh.
thanking you. I'm very happy for the information,
Aw.
Bevin. I know I always appreciate your this isn't in a book, but here's what I did a couple weeks ago attitude towards me.
Yeah, exactly. I really try to base it in my personal experience for sure.
All right.
Nice, guys. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bevin.